looked on up, climbed up the tower, saw these gorgeous views, and had just a grand time. So much fun. The problem was we had a little bit too much fun, and no one had been designated to keep track of time, and it was starting to get dark. And this was like 20 years ago, before everybody had a cell phone in their pocket that had a flashlight on it. Or a GPS, for that matter. And so we had no flashlights. And so as we were starting to climb down the mountain, it was a fairly gentle slope, and it was a pretty lightly marked trail. We started to realize that there was going to be a problem because we couldn't see. And so what we did was that we formed a chain, right? Hands on the shoulders of the person in front of you. And we were very fortunate to that one of the members of our group knew that there was a road that ran along the bottom of the mountain. And so we were lost. We were very lost. But we knew that all we had to do was go down, because eventually we'd hit the road and be able to find our way back to where we had parked. So it actually ended up being a pretty fun experience, because it turned out that many of the folks of the group there were part of a singing group, and so we sang the whole way down, and it was very memorable, right? Singing in the dark, being lost, and all that. It was quite an experience. Now, these days, if that had to happen now, we were to be up there with mini computers and GPS in our pockets, we might not have gotten lost. Like many of the mapping software actually helps you find the path down the mountain, or through parks, you have lights on your phone, right, the flashlights. And so getting lost, even in the mountains, is a much less common experience, certainly not when we're driving places these days. Now, this may be hard for some of our younger drivers in the room to imagine, but there existed a time when you were driving somewhere you never meant before, that meant that getting lost was actually a possibility. Before cell phones, we used to rely on these old-fashioned things called printed directions. And they were not always the easiest thing to follow. Now, in the early days of the internet, a website called MapQuest would give you turn-by-turn directions with street names and everything, which was pretty helpful, if occasionally inaccurate, and you sometimes missed the street, right? Or the street wasn't marked. But before the internet, which is a thing, there was a time before the internet, wedding invitations and the like almost always included a written direction sheet. And the farther out from civilization you were going, the wonkier the directions often were. Take the third left after you pass the Sunoco on the right. When you approach a big willow tree on the left, there's a soft right turn off the main road. Take that and follow it until you reach the intersection with a stone wall on your right. Turn left at the stone wall, go 0.8 of a mile, and then you've arrived. If you reach a big red barn, turn around and go back because you've gone too far. Right? This is what this happened. I'm sure many of you remember it. But getting lost wasn't just a possibility back then, it actually often happened. So these days, we don't tend to get lost as much in terms of when we're traveling places, right? Because we have these wonderful things in our pockets. But being lost remains a powerful metaphor for our lives. Because there are times when we feel lost, totally lost. And when you're lost, you need a direction to go so that you can get unlost. When my friends and I were lost in the dark on the mountain, we were able to find our way to safety fairly easily because we had a very clear direction to go, which was down. So when we're lost, having a direction to go, even if you don't know where the final destination is, can be very helpful. And so there was other technology before MapQuest and before the GPS, right? It was called, and still is called, some people still use them, a compass. And while we don't use compasses as often these days because of the cell phones, Christian minister David Chadwell suggests that using a compass can be a really powerful metaphor for navigating life. True north on the compass in his Christian setting, of course, was God, with Jesus as the compass needle, always pointing you towards God, or true north. Now, one thing I really like about this idea of the metaphor of the compass and the needle pointing you to true north is that the compass alone does not provide the answer. If you blindfold someone, transport them far away from anything familiar, and plunk them down in the middle of some random wilderness with a compass, the compass isn't actually going to help that much. Because you could have been dropped in a location with civilization located only 5 miles due south, but with wilderness extending 100 miles north, east, and west. So without any knowledge of your surroundings and which direction you should go, knowing which direction north is much less helpful. And so a compass is really only a useful, there's other uses, of course, but it's most helpful. A compass is most helpful when the person holding it has some knowledge of where they are and what the lay of the land is. So the usefulness depends in a large part on a person's knowledge and familiarity with what's going on around them earlier. Just like in my story earlier, when my hiking group got lost, we knew what direction down was. So our true north is like a compass. It helps us, it may inspire us or guide us, but it alone does not provide the answers or direction we need. We have to use what we know, our life experience, our reason, our intellect, our emotions, as to help us along with the true north to find our way. And so this idea of the compass metaphor also really got me thinking about what is true north in my life. What is it that when I'm lost, I look to for direction to help me find my path forward? What is it when I'm truly lost that even helps me get going in sort of even the right general direction? And then given our embrace of diverse theological perspectives, do we have a shared true north in Unitarian Universalism? Pastor Chadwell's sermon points out that there's actually 2 parts to the compass question. What is true north, and what is the needle that points you there? The 3 Abrahamic faiths, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all have the same true north, God, though of course they describe and understand that God differently. And of course they have different understandings of the needle that points to the different ideas of God. Mindful that I'm wildly oversimplifying complex religions here, and that these understandings are my own, the short version of their needles are as follows. In Christianity, Jesus and his teachings point the way to God. And most of us in this Christian-centered country are reasonably familiar with those teachings, and we've probably all run into WWJD at some point. What would Jesus do? That's the compass needle, right? Now, Islam offers the 5 pillars. Shahada, the profession of faith in Allah as the one true God, with Muhammad as his messenger. Salah, the 5 times daily prayer. Zakat, the giving of alms to the poor. Saum, ritual fasting. And the Hajj, the once-in-your-lifetime pilgrimage to Mecca. Judaism offers the Talmud, the law, generations and centuries of rules and regulations about how Jewish people should conduct their religious rituals, daily life, and daily conduct. Buddhism and Hinduism, on the other hand, have different true norths. Mindful again of those earlier caveats about these being my understandings of other religious traditions, Buddhism is focused on achieving nirvana or enlightenment. The Noble Eightfold Path is the needle of the compass, with the practice of letting go of our attachments probably the most prominent path among the 8. In Hinduism, true north is moksha, liberation from the cycle of birth and rebirth, and the needle is primarily dharma, or very loosely, the duty to do what is right. Now, these are all very interesting ideas to consider, and maybe one of them speaks to you. It's also good to keep in mind that even folks from the same religious tradition will hold different viewpoints. It also wouldn't be surprising to me if many folks from different religious traditions held a similar viewpoint. Do good in the world and treat others with love and kindness probably has some universal appeal. Coming back to Unitarian Universalism, what is our true north? Do we even have one? And if so, do we have a needle that points us there? For some of us, God is our true north. For others, it might be a particular philosophical or ethical system. Or maybe for some of us, it's the values of our shared community. Maybe it's nature. Maybe it's faith in humanity. Maybe for some of us, it's something like do good in the world and treat others with love and kindness. Possibly some of us might not even have anything we consider a true north. As is often true when wrestling with Unitarian Universalist theological understanding, though, the important thing is not that we have one shared answer, but that we have taken the time to think about and find our own answers to the same shared questions. We need not share the same true north in Unitarian Universalism, but it would serve us all well if we had wrestled with the question of what, if anything, is my true north, and what is it that points me there? If you have a true north, what is it for you? And how did you come by it? Did you choose it? Did you discover it? Was it gifted to you by your parents or family? Maybe shared by a trusted mentor or role model? Did you find it in a book or in a community? There's many ways we come to these things, and there's many ways that our communities come to understand our true north as well, because communities, like individuals, have a true north, something that guides them, often uncovered or co-created in community conversations. Sometimes this takes the form of a mission and vision statement. Sometimes it might take the form of a shared social justice project. Sometimes it might take the form of a covenant or a statement of shared values. Uncovering, discovering, and creating your shared true north as a community can be a powerful, moving, meaning-filled experience that brings communities and congregations great joy. But having this sense of what true north is for you is important, both individually and collectively, because we all feel lost sometimes. Whether it's the death of a parent, or the too soon death of a spouse, or the unexpected loss of a job, or struggling with poverty or food insecurity, or an abusive relationship, or getting fired from a job, or a scary illness. Whether it's the departure of a settled minister and the arrival of a new one, or a pandemic changing the way a community functions together. Life has a way of throwing really difficult challenges at us. And familiarity with our true north in those times can be incredibly helpful. And having a sense of your true north is important in all sorts of other times as well. These questions are important when faced with a difficult ethical dilemma. Knowing what your true north is can help you guide your decision making. Or if you're feeling adrift and directionless in life, reflecting on your true north can help you find a path forward. When someone else is holding us accountable for our own unkind behavior, our true north can remind us to accept responsibility and respond with grace instead of being defensive. And also when things are good, it's good to know and be connected with your true north because it can be a source of inspiration, helping draw us into continuing growth towards our best selves. And then in the bigger picture, I asked earlier what you thought Unitarian Universalism's true north might be. Let me close by sharing one answer that I really like, found in words written by Robert Walsh in a reflection titled "The Fault Line." He wrote, "Did you ever think there might be a fault line passing underneath your living room? A place in which your life is lived in meeting and in separating, wondering and telling, unaware that just beneath you is the unseen seam of great plates that strain through time. And that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilled out, the level floor set at an angle in some seconds shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates slip and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured, or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn, but always healing. That's your strength. The shifting plates, the rest of earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. If there is a true north in Unitarian Universalism, it is probably those tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold us in the web of life that's torn but always healing. My friends, as we continue to do the work of figuring out how to come back together as a community in this post-quarantine pandemic times, as you begin searching for a new settled minister next year as a congregation, and as we all navigate our lives on a day-to-day basis, it is worth taking time to know and connect with your guiding North Star, your true north. We might not get physically lost as much these days as we travel about the world thanks to our GPS, but we most certainly get lost from time to time in our lives as we try to navigate life and the life of this community. When you are lost, it is good to know and have your true north to help you get back on track.